Sex, lust, and pleasure. These are some of the vices we feel in life. It's normal, but it becomes soul violence itself when it's too much. Keep watching this video as we discuss how to cage and control our sexual desires according to Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. Let's begin. Sex is not a game. It gives rise to very real, enduring emotional and practical consequences. To ignore this is to debase yourself and to disregard the significance of human relationships. Epictetus. Sex is not a game we play just for fun. It's a significant part of being human, and it comes with consequences that stick around. When we get together intimately, it's not just about the physical. It's the emotions and real-life situations that get tangled up in it too. So what Epictetus is getting at is that we shouldn't treat sex lightly. It's not just a one-time thing. It can affect our feelings and the way we live our lives in the long run. If we don't pay attention to this, we might end up undervaluing ourselves and not realizing how important human connections are. Sex is one ingredient, but it mixes with all the other things in our lives, our emotions, our plans, and how we see ourselves. If we throw it in without careful considerations, sex might not turn out the way we want it to. Respect it, understand it, and use it wisely. It's about being aware that what we do in our personal lives can have a big impact on who we are and how we relate to others. Anything that must yet be done, virtue can do with courage and promptness. For anyone would call it a sign of foolishness for one to undertake a task with a lazy and begrudging spirit, or to push the body in one direction and the mind in another, to be torn apart by wildly divergent impulses. Seneca. When it comes to sex and being intimate with someone, it's important for us to be respectful, caring, and morally upright. If we approach these moments lazily or without genuine concern for our partner, it can mess up the emotional and relationship side of things. Just like Seneca warns against being unfocused in tasks, being detached in intimate moments, doing physical things without really being emotionally connected, can leave us feeling unfulfilled and disconnected. Seneca's advice is especially important when we focus on the possible bad outcomes of not contemplating about or not being connected in our actions in intimate relationships. If we approach intimacy with virtues like courage, being open, vulnerable, and understanding about our desires and limits, it's better. On the other hand, if we do intimate things reluctantly or without a real connection, it can lead to feeling emotionally distant and having troubled relationships. Seneca's wisdom isn't just about getting things done. It's also about forming healthy and meaningful connections, even in the more personal parts of life. The soul does violence to itself when it is overpowered by pleasure or by pain. Marcus Aurelius. Our inner selves are like a delicate balance, and when we experience extreme pleasure or pain, it's a strong force disrupting that equilibrium. In relationships, especially during intimate moments, if we allow intense pleasure or sharp pain to take over without thoughtful consideration, it's as if our inner selves are being harmed. In sex, if we become overly engrossed in the pleasure of the moment without considering our values, we might engage in actions that contradict our true beliefs, leading to emotional distress later on. On the other hand, if we let the pain of an argument interfere with the intimate connection, it can impede our ability to understand each other and resolve issues. Marcus Aurelius is advising us to be cautious about letting pleasure or pain take control in these situations. Instead, we should be aware of them, understand their power, but not allow them to prompt impulsive actions. The idea is to maintain harmony, ensuring that we don't jeopardize our emotional and mental well-being. To stay in control of our emotions in intimate relationships, we need to balance pleasure and pain with mindfulness. The quote serves as a reminder to be conscious of strong feelings, but not to let them disrupt our inner selves. Among the worst cases, I count also those who give their time to nothing but drink and lust, for these are the most shameful preoccupations of all. Seneca. Seneca is cautioning against the idea of focusing all our time on just two things: excessive drinking and pursuing pleasure without much thought. Picture a life where every day revolves around drinking heavily and seeking immediate pleasure or sex, with no consideration for anything else. Seneca is warning that this kind of narrow focus is not only unhelpful but also one of the worst choices we can make. It's similar to putting all our energy into activities that might provide short-term enjoyment, but disregarding other essential aspects of life that contribute to our long-term growth and happiness. Specifically, Seneca is addressing the danger of becoming overly fixated on sexual desires without considering the potential consequences. He argues that such a single-minded focus is detrimental to personal development and may even harm one's reputation. When Seneca mentions drinking and lust, he advises us to be cautious not to let these pursuits completely take over our lives. Instead, he suggests a more stable approach where we consider the consequences of our actions. Essentially, he's urging us not to let fleeting desires divert us from deeper and more enduring happiness. Show me someone who isn't a slave. One is a slave to lust, another to greed, another to power, and all are slaves to fear. I could name a former consul who is a slave to a little old woman, a millionaire who is the slave of the cleaning woman. No servitude is more abject than the self-imposed. Seneca is saying that we all can feel trapped in some way, not necessarily physically, but by our strong desires or attachments. He believes we are all tied to something, like wanting pleasure from sex, chasing money, seeking power, or being controlled by fear. Seneca's wise advice goes further, suggesting that when we willingly give in to our own desires and fears, it's one of the worst kinds of slavery. This idea is especially important when pondering about our desires, like in the context of relationships and sex. Seneca is warning us not to let our passions and urges take over our lives. He wants us to reflect about what we want and not let it control us. By talking about different kinds of slavery, Seneca is pushing us to understand why we make certain choices and what influences us. The message is to avoid becoming prisoners of our own actions, to realize and break free from the traps we set for ourselves. It's a reminder to reevaluate our connections, including those tied to desires and relationships, so we don't unintentionally give up our freedom to things we choose. To sum it up, what Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius teach us is that sex is a fragile moment that can easily get messed up by too much passion. As we deal with our feelings and desires, let's use the Stoic ideas of controlling ourselves and contemplating clearly to help us. When we mix our wants with good choices, we're on a path to a calmer and better life. And here's the thing, it's not about saying no to our feelings, but learning how to handle them well. That brings real happiness. So, let the Stoic lessons help us find balance in the tricky world of sex, lust, and pleasure. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and share your realizations about sex, lust, and pleasure in the comments section. With that, this is again Powerful Quote. Thank you for staying with us until the end, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.